friends, I'm Carmen and I'm one of the educators at Curiosity. I wanted to share with you a fun fact about me. I love the Earth. I wonder if you also feel that way. Well, today I wanted to share with you some cool activities and some things to think about to help our planet. I'm thinking about the decisions that we make that play into sustainability. What? Sustainability is all about three different things. Let me show you a little bit more about what it means to make a sustainable decision. In 2005, leaders from all over the world met at a United Nations World Summit, and they worked together to define three things that make up sustainability, because sustainable decisions are good for all of us. Now, my favorite part of sustainability is the environment. The plants, the land, the air, the water, and the creatures that share all of those are what make up the environment. It's the natural array of ecosystems that surrounds all of us and provides us with the resources that we all use to survive. Ooh, how much is that? I'll take one. Yeah, that's exactly what I need. Okay, here you go. It's perfect. The economy is another part of sustainability. The exchange of goods and services for money all around the world, and the businesses that help to make those happen are a part of making sustainable decisions. Another part of sustainability is, of course, us, the people of the world, all over the world. When we look at sustainability, we need to consider whether the people can be safe, have the opportunity to learn and go to school, or have a livelihood that helps them to be able to enjoy equitable rights and access to opportunities. All of the parts of sustainability can seem like a hard act to juggle. After all, how can business, people, and the environment all coexist? Well, that's why we have the science of sustainability, in order to assess or to figure out how well each of these things is working together. That's why it's so important that this is a worldwide decision that all of us have an integral role in helping to support. Balancing the different parts of sustainability, the people, the environment, and the businesses that make up our world, has to do with just asking a few simple questions. For example, you could ask when you're making a decision, is this fair to the people, to the environment, to business? Is it bearable? Something that we can all deal with. And finally, the question you can ask is it viable? Can decisions like this continue and persist in a way that supports people, the environment, and businesses all together, and for a long time, not just till tomorrow? A lot of you out there might know me from my Curiosity self as the director of our Science of Art camps. That's definitely something true to me. I love to express myself, to use many colors and patterns, and basically, I really do love fashion. Today, I'm going to share with you a little bit about looking at sustainable fashion and how it impacts you and the rest of the world, including the businesses that you use to get fashion and the plants and animals all over the world that are sharing the resources we use. Clothing choices and fashion choices are a good example of applying sustainability in your everyday life, because everything from where the cloth comes from, to how far it takes to get to you, to where you purchased it from, and how long you'll own the particular garment, item of clothing, all of that plays into sustainability. Buying thrifted clothing is one of my favorite sustainable fashion ideas. By purchasing thrifted clothing, I can patronize a business that donates to a social enterprise, like helping animals at a shelter or rehabilitate people who are ill. My choices in where I put that money can help benefit a business that also benefits society. Additionally, when I purchase thrifted clothing, the resources harvested from the earth in order to make that clothing have already happened. They don't need to repeat in order for me to have that garment and to give it a second life. Here's a little snapshot of some of my favorite thrifted items from throughout the years. know what you might be thinking right now. What if you're a person who doesn't really care about fashion? It doesn't appeal to you to worry about what you look like? Well, you know what? Power to you. Because that's not the only part of sustainable fashion. Even if the style of clothing, the color, the cut, isn't what draws you to make your choices, sustainability also impacts you. Other clothing choices, such as comfort and durability, impact the environment because all of these materials that go into the clothing you choose come from somewhere in the world. One question is, what's the path from Earth's resources to you when you choose an item of clothing? Is it sourced from a plant that occurs naturally in the ecosystem, or a plant that needs to grow on a farm? Or does the material for the fabric in your clothing come from an animal, like this? Sometimes fabric comes from unexpected sources, like plastic. Some of these fabrics are made from new plastics, and others are able to repurpose and recycle plastics such as bottles and bags. No matter where a fabric comes from to make the clothing you use, it does need some care. The water, cleaning supplies, and energy from washers or dryers is also a factor in the environmental sustainability of your clothing. How much does it take to care for your clothing from the beginning of when you wear it to when it ends its useful life as clothes for you? How long will your clothing last before it can be made into something new or returns to the earth and biodegrades to become part of the ecosystem? This might seem overwhelming at first to think about, but there are some things we can start to do at home to begin exploring our clothing choices and thinking about them in the light of sustainability. That is, who you buy them from, how that impacts other people, and of course, how that impacts the environment all around us. Here are 2 tests you can do to start assessing the environmental sustainability, how good your clothing might be for the planet. Start by checking out the ingredients. No, this is not food. In this case, they're not called ingredients, they're the fabric content of your clothes. Is this something that came from a plant and will one day biodegrade? Is it something that's plastic, something that will never biodegrade on our planet? Or is it something from an animal that came from a creature that's maybe still alive out there in the world? See if you can figure out where that fabric is from. For our second test, you'll want to take a look at the durability of your clothing. The longer you have this clothing, the fewer new resources you'll need to use from the planet. Also, the more you're able to do in this clothing, from running, to jumping, to studying, to who knows whatever you want to do, maybe even swimming. The more activities you're able to do in your clothing, the fewer different options you need. Once again, reducing the number of resources that you take from the planet. Here's a little bit of a messy experiment you can do to test how durable your clothes are. An inevitable part of owning clothing is that it's going to get dirty, you're going to sweat in it, and you're going to have to clean it. One way of looking at the environmental sustainability of your clothing is noticing how long it's going to last. If you have to clean it over and over again, get it wet, dry it out, remove stains, that all affects how long you're going to have it and be able to use these resources from the earth. Since I don't actually want to ruin any of my clothes testing their durability and how long they'll last, I'm going to check with water. Since I know I have to wash these clothes, and of course, it's a fact, we sweat in our clothes, I'm going to test and spray some water on different fabrics that I own and see what happens to see if this can tell me a little bit more about how durable my clothes are. This particular shirt is made out of viscose, which is a fiber that comes from trees. It's something that's renewable and can be recycled or composted afterwards. When I spray water on the viscose, it looks like it soaks right in, and I wonder how well it's going to dry. if I pick it up and feel it, I notice that it is moist, so if I were wearing this, I wouldn't be super happy about it, but the fabric's also really thin and airy, so I think it'll dry out really fast. I'm gonna set this one aside and test out another fabric. This shirt is made out of cotton. Cotton is also from a plant. It's a plant that needs to come from a farm. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little spray and see what happens. So one effect I see in this shirt is when it gets wet, you can kind of see through it. So to me, this would not really be a shirt I would want to sweat in, because the moisture in the shirt would affect what it looked like. And it feels pretty heavy and wet. I don't know if I would like to have this against my skin if I were being active. I'm gonna set this one aside and see how that one dries too. This shirt here is made out of nylon, and that is absolutely plastic. It's the same plastic that's made with oil, petroleum, that you've heard of, that gets lost in the ocean. So I'm really curious about how this shirt will handle the water. So this is a totally different result than our other two fibers so far. As you can see, some of the droplets of water are staying on top, while just a few are soaking in. This makes me wonder if this item of clothing is really good at resisting moisture, resisting sweat, but if it also resists water, I wonder if that makes this hard to clean. I'm going to try to set this one aside without changing how any of the water droplets are sitting to see how it dries. And the last item I'm going to test today, because I don't want to get all of my clothes wet, is this wool sweater. Now, wool of course is from an animal. It can be from an alpaca, a sheep, a goat. This one's from a sheep. So I'm going to go ahead and spray some water on there, and oh hey, y'all, this is really interesting here. The result looks really similar to that nylon and spandex shirt that I just tested. Do you notice how some of the water is beading up on the outside? And actually with my hands on the back, I don't feel any of it soaking in. This is really interesting. So once again, I'm going to try to fold this one where I don't move any of the water droplets, and also set this one aside to dry. I've been letting the test clothing, the clothing that we got wet, sit for about 20 minutes, which I feel like would kind of be my tolerance for how long I would be willing to wait for sweat or water or a spill to dry on clothes that I was already wearing. Now, I'm a very active person. I love hiking, I love biking, I love ballet and yoga and exercise. So not all of these clothes were purchased at a time in which that was the majority of my lifestyle. So I think that's going to show some interesting variation in the results I got. By the way, it's a relatively cool day. It's about 55 degrees and foggy. So keep in mind that this experiment might be totally different if you're testing it on a 90-degree day during the summer. Let's check out the results of how the clothing dried. Okay, here's the viscose shirt, the one made from tree fiber. Honestly, it feels just as wet as when we started this experiment 15 minutes ago. I would definitely not want to wear this if I were out exercising and being active. So I'm going to rate it kind of low on my durability test, because I don't think it would be comfortable to wear while exercising and being active or teaching, and I don't think that nowadays I would get a lot of use out of it. So as far as durability, it's probably not going to hold up to the repeated washing and wearing that I would need for my active lifestyle. Here we are with our cotton t-shirt, and I'm sad to say that I'm noticing some of the same as with our last shirt. It feels just as wet as it did 15 minutes ago. So I would say for durability, especially if I were deciding to line dry these clothes instead of put them in an electric dryer, which would be something that would be more environmentally friendly for the resources and energy, these would also not be very efficient choices for saving energy, and that is part of the picture of environmental sustainability. with each of these clothes. Here's a look at our nylon shirt, and this one actually makes it pretty obvious where it's wet. One interesting thing is that on this shirt, even though it looks wet and still is wet on the outside, inside, where it would be against your skin, it actually doesn't feel that damp. So it looks like the moisture stays on the outside where it could evaporate out. To me, that makes this shirt a little bit better for my active lifestyle, because if I were to wash it by hand and then line dry it so I didn't use as much energy, it seems like it would dry relatively quickly. And if I were wearing it and got sweaty, it seems like it would hold up pretty well to keeping that moisture in one place instead of it spreading around and changing the whole shirt. So as far as sustainability in my wardrobe, I'm gonna give this one a little bit of a higher rating. Finally, here is our wool shirt. So as a reminder, before, all the water droplets were visible, and now they're not visible at all. If I run my hand on either side of this shirt, it doesn't feel wet at all, which is really surprising and impressive to me. Did you try this experiment at home with some of your clothes? What results did you get? Was anything surprising or expected? I think, as I've hinted at in this video, making sustainable choices is kind of a complicated subject. It doesn't mean you can't make a difference in it just because it's complicated. It just means that there are many facets, many factors that play into a sustainable decision. For me, my choices about sustainable fashion really had to do with where I purchased the clothing, what type of businesses I patronized, how long I could wear the clothing, for example, how durable it is, lasting through our simulated washings, dryings, and sweatings, and then ultimately, where this clothing is going to go after I'm completely done wearing it. I want to stress that there's absolutely no one right way to make sustainable decisions. It's really all about putting thought into your own individual preferences and lifestyles, but also knowing that those little decisions ripple out to the people, businesses, and the planet that we all interact with and are connected to for survival. Now, when I'm done with my clothing, I kind of like to look at where it's going to go. That's kind of making a full circle. I'm lucky enough to have a younger sibling that I can give a lot of hand-me-downs to when I outgrow something, or if it's simply not my style. But here's a cool activity that you can do if that's not an option for you. This is a tote bag that I made out of a t-shirt. We have some instructions for it that you can see on our Curiosity at-home activities. So that's just one option that you can use to complete that circle of sustainability as we connect the dots of the people, places, and things that we find in our everyday lives. So I hope you learned a little bit more about what sustainability is and thought about some more questions that you can have in your everyday life to start noticing how the choices you make impact the world around us. Maybe you're gonna decide to be a sustainable scientist when you grow up. Maybe you're gonna decide to make more purchases from businesses that help the environment or give to charity and help people. Maybe you're going to grow up to run a business that helps to connect all of us together and provide better resources for people everywhere. Who knows? Whatever you do with your sustainability knowledge, you're sure to have an effect that reaches far and wide. So please do try some of these things at home and keep asking questions, keeping science in mind.